What is the stupidest thing that ever came out of your mouth? I got off a red eye, very sleep deprived, and realized I forgot my glasses on the plane. I asked the very kind gate agent if she could go check my seat to see if she could find them. While she was gone, I touched my face and felt my glasses. I was mortified and apologized profusely when she returned. She was really nice about it though. I was student teaching and discussing my weekend plans to visit my cousin. One teacher said, "Oh, you're visiting your cousin? I thought you said you were going to visit your boyfriend." In an attempt to gloss over his mistake and communicate the sentiment of no worries, I instead shrugged and for some reason said same thing. When I was doing a woman's taxes and asked her if she had any medical expenses for the year, she said, "Well, I had to put my husband in a nursing home last year." I said, "That's excellent, big time deductions there." Then I looked up and saw the look on her face, and it still took me another 3 or 4 seconds to realize why she looked so horrified. I've never apologized so sincerely and completely in my life. I had a really hard time forgiving myself for that one. While out for a walk, I admired a cute dog. I wanted to ask what breed it was, but my brain wasn't working. Instead, I asked, "What brand is your dog?" which startled the owner and myself. My attempt at correcting myself resulted in me blurting out species, which only made matters worse. I was running once and saw a small flock of wild turkeys on a lawn. I yelled, "Turkeys, turkeys," at a family getting out of a car one house over. They just stared oddly. After, I realized that there was a fence between the two properties and they had no idea why I was yelling at them. I was giving a presentation about my club in high school, and at the end I wanted to invite people to come visit us. So I went to say stop by or say hi, but instead I managed to tell about 100 high schoolers to stay hi. Didn't know why everyone laughed till my friend told me what I said later. He looked at me and then the casket and kind of smirked. I awkwardly started to try and explain and just said, "I'm an idiot. You know I love you. Talk to you in a bit." He makes fun of me now and I can't stop laughing. It's a positive painful memory. Sometimes laughter is one of the easiest ways to get through a hard time. A bad joke at the wrong time can sometimes end up being a good joke at the perfect time and help to ease losing someone. That doesn't mean to go making jokes and trying to be a comedian at funerals though. That will usually just get you thrown out. I was a cashier about a year ago and I had to unlock the bathroom for people when they needed to go. So anyways, I unlocked the bathroom for this guy and he says thanks and I replied have a good one. That's what I always said when people left, after they bought something, not when they're going to shit. I hated that job. Was at the dentist and he has me clench my teeth to look at my bite. He then says, "Any pain?" To which I reply with no, with my teeth still clenched. He and the dental hygienist look at each other confused, so I ask him to repeat what he said. Apparently, he actually said open up. So he literally just said open up and I said number. Wanted to shrivel up in a hole and die. I was so embarrassed. They thought it was hilarious though. I'm a paper conservator by trade and one driving through the New Forest, UK, recently to go hiking with friends. I realized that a village we were passing through was once the site of some famously beautiful trees that had featured in a print I had conserved years before. I didn't say that, however. What I instead proclaimed as we drove through the literal fucking New Forest was, "Guys, did you know ... around here ... there were once trees." Edit, spelling. I did something similar. I learnt recently that because of mountains under the sea exerting more gravity on the surrounding water, there's actually little hills in the ocean of a few meters, spread over a few kilometers. What I should have said was, did you know that sea level isn't level everywhere? What I actually said was, did you know the sea isn't flat? When I explained to my dad that my boyfriend really liked BJ's, while they were both sitting there meeting each other for the first time. BJ's is a restaurant chain where I live. Same thing with a new at the time mom-and-pop restaurant in my hometown. My parents asked what my plans were for the weekend, and I said a boy was picking me up on Friday for BJ's and a movie. It took them a moment to realize I meant dinner and a movie. They just froze as if time stood still while they worked through what I had said. Finally, my time to tell this story. I used to work at CVS, and I was training to be a key holder, which is to the manager, assistant manager what a lieutenant commander is to the captain, so on Star Trek. So one day neither of the managers could come in, so they sent this guy Ryan over from another store, and this was the first time I had ever met him. Now at CVS, we have to wear those crappy blue polo shirts, but Ryan, being management level, could elect to wear an actual professional shirt instead of the blue polo. We worked, did our shifts, and that was it. Maybe a week and a half later I head over to my friend's store, and lo and behold Ryan is working there. On this day he elected to wear his blue CVS polo shirt. We knew these shirts. We all had these shirts. This was his shirt. The same way when you're in the army this is your rifle. So I don't recognize Ryan, but I kind of recognize him, and I'm staring at him for a couple of seconds, and it starts to slowly click. "Ryan," I say, and he confirms. And that's when I realized what it was. I had only seen him in a regular shirt. I had never seen him with his blue CVS polo. But what I said was, "Oh, it is you." I said I didn't recognize you with your shirt on. I was discussing my husband's experience with a childhood urinary tract infection. We're both medical, so not that weird, and I asked him, "Are you circumcised?" My husband. I was once at the doctor's for some infection down there and he asked whether my partner was circumcised, and I had absolutely no idea. After more than 2 years, and definitely having seen it many times, that was a very long, awkward pause. A coworker and I were discussing what features we found attractive in our partners. He mentioned he loved people's eyes, so I asked what color of eyes his wife had. He had no clue. They've been married for 3 years and he couldn't even tell me brown, blue or green. Probably the time I was on my honeymoon in Hawaii when I asked my new husband why there wasn't a bridge to Hawaii. I mean, if there can be a bridge to Alaska, why can't there be a bridge to Hawaii? Husband: there's not a bridge to Alaska though. Then how do people drive there? Husband: Canada. Canada is the bridge. Still just about die of embarrassment every time I think about that one. I was on a business call at work. The finance manager and I faced each other in our cubicles and the wall between us was low so that we could see each other. We had a good working relationship and we laughed a lot. One day as I was hanging up the phone from a vendor who had just agreed to make changes to everything I needed her to do, I exclaimed, "Thank you so much. You are so bendable." I hung up the phone. He looks at me and he says, "You just called her bendable." I said, "No, I didn't. I thanked her for being so flexible." He burst out laughing and I said, "Wait, did I?" But this time he was laughing so hard I knew that I did. 2 choices: let it go or correct myself. I couldn't let it go. I called the woman back and apologized. She asked me for what. I said, "I was trying to thank you for being so flexible but I called you bendable and didn't realize until I hung up what I had actually said. But my coworker is sitting there looking at me laughing at me, so I just had to call and make this right with you." She responded with, "No worries, I'm here laughing too." My first job was the concession stand at a movie theater. After ringing people up I would end with "enjoy the show." It was so ingrained in me due to saying it hundreds of times a week that I would sometimes say it whenever someone gave me change when I was the shopper at a store. I remember being so embarrassed. I look back and get a chuckle out of it now, though. I work at a coffee shop that offers dog treats for when people come in with their dogs. "Would you like a treat for your dog?" is such an ingrained question that I once asked the woman with a toddler that same question. I realized my mistake immediately and just tried to stammer through an apology that it's normally a small dog on the other side of the counter than a small child. She was not amused. I once was in line for a Neil Gaiman book signing. As soon as it was my turn to get my book signed I was so starstruck I blurted out, You are my biggest fan." I immediately realized my mistake and apologized profusely, and Neil just laughed it off and signed the book, and I was so flustered I didn't pay attention to what he scribbled in. Only after I left the area and opened up my copy of the book to realize he'd signed it with, "From your biggest fan, Neil Gaiman." ETA. I really hope Neil himself doesn't mind me sharing the photo of the actual autograph that made my day so many years ago, but here it is. In case anyone is wondering, I asked him to sign my copy of the Miramask illustrated film script when he was in Singapore to promote the film. I skipped my university orientation so I could be there, haha. Also, thank you so much for the upvotes and the awards. In my freshman year of college, I was dorming next door to a couple cute girls. About a week into the first semester, one girl walked from the co-ed showers to her dorm room in her towel still wet. We were both unlocking our doors to get in our rooms when she looks at me and says, "I know I look stunning," sarcastically, to which I replied, "Don't flatter yourself." I had to slid a knot under her door explaining I was tongue-tied as she was beautiful and I meant to say don't be hard on yourself, you look great, or something to that nature. We became good friends. Reminds of junior year HS. We're all waiting in the computer room, which was like a mini auditorium, because it was pouring rain and lightning, supposed to just pass over and then we can leave for home. We're all just quiet, kinda talking but mostly staring around. My ag teacher was one of two teachers up front, just standing facing us with his arms crossed, bored looking. When the perfect amount of silence came, he let out a long sigh, looked down at his watch and said, "Man, I need to get home and water the grass." Everybody died. After a few minutes I was the only one still dying and people were saying how red I was from trying to hold it in. Just couldn't stop laughing, man. His perfect delivery, paired with a loud pattering of rain on the roof, joke hit me like a truck. I was about 4 months into my current job, feeling confident being fresh off the contract to hire period, now moved into a coveted full-time role. While walking back to my office from the morning Kanban I was stopped by my boss, head peeking out of the office. "Boss, hey the mediator, do you have a second?" "Me? For you, I've got lots of seconds." "Boss, why dies?" Mouth dropped. If you're curious why this was incredibly stupid, embarrassing, try saying the phrase "lots of seconds" out loud, preferably. Not to your boss though. Lol. When I was in 6th grade, the neighbor teacher came in and asked our teacher if she had a seconds and my teacher responds, "I have many seconds," and to a bunch of 6th graders, we all started laughing. She had a confused look on her face and then got quiet when she realized it. I'm glad I read this because it sounds like something I'd eventually say. I'm not a native English speaker, but I never really had an accent that North Americans would assume to be foreign. So every time I'd pronounce something wrong, people would just assume I'm awkward or have some sort of speech impediment or something like that. When I was 18 I went to Canada to work, in an English-speaking environment, and on my first day of work, I was supposed to fill out some sort of worksheet at the end of the day and hand it to my manager. I was really concerned about the word sheet and shit at that time. It was a totally conscious thing though. If I didn't think about it they'd come out fine. So at the end of the day I get my sheet. Notice my manager has left her own worksheet next to my desk, so get hers too, and walk into her office thinking don't say shit, don't say shit, don't say shit. I walk in, look at her and say here's my shit. Immediately realizing what I'd said, I tried my best to mask it and quickly followed it up with ... and here's your shit. Fucking embarrassing. She looked kind of bewildered for a while and just went ... yeah, thanks. It didn't help that earlier that morning, when meeting her for the first time, I naturally went in and kissed her on each cheek as is custom where I'm from because I didn't realize it was different, and she was also really taken aback and uncomfortable. I'm sure someone told her afterwards that I was a foreigner, but the shame stays with me forever. I was working in a drive-in ticket booth for a fancy heritage park in Yorkshire, when a car stopped at my booth with a young couple, a toddler and the cutest corgi in the back. They asked a few questions about the park and asked if it was okay to ride a tricycle around the grounds. Me, being completely enamored with this dog, hesitantly said yes, and how I was so excited to see this dog somehow ride this tiny bike. It was for their toddler that I forgot in the backseat. We had a good laugh about it, but it was still a big smooth brain moment. Edit. Thank you, kind stranger, for the silver. My full response to that couple, as best I can remember it going, was, them. Asks question about tricycle dash. Me already trying to plot a way to leave my booth to watch this bike pop. Yes, of course you can ride around the park, but please remember that all dogs must still stay on leashes though. This just happened an hour ago. I'm in this cafe to leave a bunch of flyers I made. As I'm leaving, the waitress tells me she likes my perfume. Normally, I'd pick up on this as sort of a chat-up line and politely diffuse. But because of COVID and a recent breakup, I'm just not in that mindset at all. So I just blurt out, yeah, I put on extra because I didn't shower today and I sweat a lot. Like, I can't even fucking cringe at myself. I'm so horrified. Even if she was just being nice, I'm now a weird story she can tell her friends. I'm such a fucking moron. Edit. Oh yeah, I completely forgot to say what she was responded. So after I said that, she hesitantly said it. It was a compliment and we were wearing masks, so I can't be completely sure, but I think she smirked. She definitely smirked with her eyes. Again, complete fucking moron. Stupid and possibly legally actionable. I attended a meeting at my old company and I turned out to be the only man there. The woman giving the presentation was having trouble connecting her computer to the big screen, so I pulled out my adapter and helped her get all set. She said, "You're pretty handy to have around," and I, intending to convey nothing but my nerdiness, started to say, "Well, I'm pretty well endowed in the dongle department." As I started to say this, my brain belatedly realized how inappropriate this would be and cut me off, leaving me to say, "Well, I'm pretty well endowed." Fortunately, this only elicited a couple of awkward laughs and not an incident with HR. Once a friend was taking a graphic design class. They asked me for my opinion on a project they was doing. They had to redesign road signs. They asked me if they should have a hand on the sign or the word stop. I said you should have the word stop because blind people can't see the hand. They then looked at me and asked, "You know blind people won't be able to read stop either." I thought blind people could somehow read letters like a normal person, but couldn't see anything else. This sounds like what my dad's friend has. He had a virus that affected his brain years ago. Now he's partially sighted and can't read or write and sometimes forgets words for things. He also suffers from seizures, but apparently his eyes work fine, but the connections in his brain got messed up. He can now type something into Google or YouTube if he copies it one letter at a time when someone writes it down. He was completely normal and spoke at least 2 languages before the illness. When I was living up in Fairbanks, I was out driving with my parents one day. There was a truck in front of us that had a decal on the back window. It had the word home written, except that the O was replaced with an outline of the state of Alaska. My dad says, "Oh, that's cute. They replaced the O in home with Alaska." My response, "Thanks for explaining that, because I had no idea what Alaska meant." I worked in politics in the early to mid-2000s. I'm in D.C. We were going to the White House for a photo shoot with the POTUS and some legislators. I was one of a few folks taking the pics for the people from my state. I walk up to a gate, not necessarily the right one, and a uniformed Secret Service officer with an automatic weapon and ask where's the Oval Office I'm supposed to shoot the president. He cocks his head to the side ... and I'm immediately like, that was a really stupid way to ask that questions, wasn't it? He deadpan said, "Yep, and you couldn't see it even if I told you." I explained I was supposed to enter on a certain side and I was trying to figure out where. He made a gesture in a direction. I thanked him, apologized again, and walked away. I hear him laughing behind me as he radioed the other gate. I got to the proper gate and the agent looks at me and says, "Well, you must be our shooter," and snickers. I replayed that in my head 100x over. I was about 4 years old, and I was just starting to understand the differences between boys and girls, anatomically, so naturally everything I saw at that time, my brain would try to work out the implications of that for the situation. My mom took my sister and I to go see Snow White in the theaters. Well, when it got to the scene where Snow White was sleeping, and the dwarves were all crying, my brain thought it must be something because they were all boys, and Snow White was a girl. So I loudly asked my mom in a theater full of people, are they crying because they can't find her vagina? Needless to say, my sister and mother were dying of embarrassment. I remember hearing some guy in the theater lose his shit laughing. My mom quickly ushered me and my sister out while apologizing to everyone around us, and took us home. This was 32 years ago and they still bring this up at every family get-together. That shit still keeps me up at night.